you look at our website and it says flexible memberships for Webflow. That is likely going to change. It's messy. It's confusing. I'm going to have to do a lot of cleanup work. It doesn't excite me to do. We're looking at this page and we're like, damn, this was done in a day.
I ended up building my own little custom Webflow extension.
Then I'm showing this to Duncan, for example, and Duncan loves the Webflow community. We all do, but Duncan specifically, he's like, what? Like, our site leaving Webflow? That's crazy.
It changes the game a bit when your pitch is the finished product. You know, it's all the things that are possible with the API documentation. I should be able to say, hey, can you like build me a section that has all of this stuff in it? And in theory, it should just write the script for me and then execute the script. That was my thinking.
This call, what I would like to tell you is how that happened, because I mean, look, you look at our website and it says flexible memberships for Webflow. That is likely going to change. We love Webflow. I built my whole career off Webflow. MemberStack built its entire company off Webflow. We're not ditching Webflow at all. And I don't want anyone to think that we are. H1 is confusing because we do a lot more than that. But anyways, it was an interesting decision. So essentially what happened was this. Backstory. The MemberStack Webflow site started in 2018. It has been worked on by over 10 people at different points in their career using different class naming systems. There is a CMS full of redundant stuff that needs to be deleted. None of this is Webflow's fault. Okay, Webflow is a flexible platform that allows you to build a messy site, a clean site, a good site, a bad site, and us, in pursuit of speed and fast launching, made our site very messy. And so going back 1 year, I went through the whole site, reskinned it, changed some copy, stuff like that, because, you know, the industry's changing, the world is changing, we need to keep up. So we were looking in September, November, we kept looking at our marketing site and we're like, yeah, we're going to need to go back into this and make a lot of changes. But when I thought about going back into that Webflow project, not Webflow as a whole per se, just that Webflow project, I'm like, oh, man, I don't want to do that. Like, it just doesn't excite me. It's messy. It's confusing. I'm going to have to do a lot of cleanup work. It doesn't excite me to do. But nonetheless, we needed to do it. And so we were going to do it. That was the plan, to rebuild our site in Webflow. What I wanted to do was start a brand new project, fully clean, build a good style guide, consistent with components, CMS without redundant stuff. That's it. That was the plan. And so I'm talking to Molly on our team, who is our head of content, and we were kind of talking about the marketing site. We're coming up with some ideas, and we're both like, she uses Claude Code, I use Claude Code, we all use Claude Code. We're like, you want to pop open Claude Code and like prototype this? Just because we didn't even know what we wanted the site to be. We knew it was outdated. We knew it needed an update, not visually, but from a marketing positioning standpoint. So we popped open Claude Code, and we're like, let's craft our vision so that we can share it with the rest of the team and get their buy-in to rebuild our Webflow site in Webflow. Again, that was always the plan. We never were like, Webflow sucks, we want to leave Webflow. Not for a second. So anyways, we collaborated on it, we worked on it, and we got a page that, you know, last time we talked, I showed you that homepage. After like a day, that was the page you were looking at. And we're like, this would have taken so long. Not because of Webflow, but when you're building anything from scratch, you have to think about it. You have to articulate it. You have to plan it. You have to map it. You have to design it. You have to write it. You have to develop it. That would have taken, you know, I spent on our previous homepage about 2 weeks full time, just iterating, just improving, just making it better. And before anyone's like, why'd you spend that long on one page? It's responsible for almost all of our revenue. You know, our company, it would make sense for me to a month on one homepage. It makes sense. If we can raise that conversion rate by 1%, that's big money. So anyways, we're looking at this page and we're like, damn, this was done in a day. And then talking to Molly again, I'm like, what reason would there be to rebuild this in Webflow? No, I still wanted to rebuild it in Webflow, but I was just kind of opening the conversation, like, why? We're sitting there, we're like, well, and we kind of just realized it was because that's the way we've always done things. And so once we realized that, we're like, okay. Vibe coding your entire marketing site that your entire business depends on is absurd, right? Nobody does that. But why does nobody do that? So what we kind of decided, we're like, all right, we don't know what it is right now, but there's got to be a reason why this is a bad idea. And so what I did was I decided I'm basically going to start migrating the site, not with the goal of launching it, with the goal of finding out why to not migrate the site. I was thinking maybe on the static pages. Those went through without much of a hitch. Then I'm like, okay, once the CMS comes into play, like you said, when it comes to like publishing an item, like there's going to be 10 steps to publish an item. Our writers are going to have to deploy to Vercel, and it's going to be a nightmare. We're not going to be able to do this. So I was looking for that cue to be like, stop it, Julian, bad idea. I didn't even want to tell anyone on our team because I was 90% sure that I was going to come to the conclusion on my own that this is a bad idea. So start migrating static pages. Good. Then I'm like, okay, CMS. I find Sanity. I'm like, install Sanity. Sanity has an MCP. Add the MCP. And I'm like, all right, let me find a simple collection or testimonials. Very simple Webflow collection. I thought it was going to be hard. I've done a lot of CMS migrations, WordPress to Webflow primarily, and they're a pain and they're boring. So I exported the CSV. I uploaded it into a folder in my project, and I'm like, all right, Claude, let's see what you can do. Bring this into Sanity. Perfect. I'm like, no, there's no way. I tried out Sanity. I was like adding testimonials, removing them. Like, this is so easy. So I'm like, all right. Now I'm going to try our blog post. There's like 300 blog posts in there. Bound to run more content, rich text, all this stuff, bound to run into a problem. Does it perfectly. Like, oh shit, okay. Templates, like there's different types of templates with different page layouts. I'm like, this is going to break, right? It has to break. There's no way this is going to work. Templates go through without a hitch. Components go through without a hitch. Everything. And at the end, I'm sitting there with a completely migrated site. It took 2 weeks. I'm running tests with, like, what Screaming Frog is? It's basically like, like SEO crawler on steroids for anyone who doesn't know what it is. It gets all your site data, figures out what the problem. I did that. I used something called Unlighthouse, which just scans all of your pages to see like the Lighthouse score. Compared it to the Webflow site. Like, it's perfect. It's better than our Webflow site. It has better performance. We all agree it looks better. I've had some people be like, yeah, that looks like vibe coded slop. Does it? I don't know. I don't care. Our conversion rate doesn't agree with that. But by all measurable metrics, the site was better. We hadn't really decided internally 100% like, okay, we're going to migrate this site over. Then I'm showing this to Duncan, for example, and Duncan loves the Webflow community. We all do, but Duncan specifically, he's like, what? Like, well, our site leaving Webflow? That's crazy. But the thing is, when you see a site that was moved over in that amount of time, think about how quickly you can iterate. We have a lot of pages in our backlog of like, we want to make a page for this, we want to make a page for that. And they're just sitting there in the backlog collecting dust because we're a small team and I don't have, 2 days to dedicate to building a new kick-ass landing page. So Tyler, Josh, engineers on our team, the thing is they can contribute more to the marketing site. And so they did not have any sort of like disagreements when it came to that. They saw it. They're like, this looks sick. We can contribute to it. Awesome. Duncan obviously loves Webflow, as we all do. And looking at it, he's like, how can you argue with that? How can you argue with being able to ship things to your marketing site that quickly? How can you argue with the looks? How can you argue with the Lighthouse scores? How can you argue with the SEO scores? At that point, it just comes down to common sense. And so he was...
I mean, it's kind of, it changes the game a bit when your pitch is the finished product. It's like, oh yeah, this is how it could work. And it's like, all right, how long will it take? And it's like, well, now we just need to hit the publish button and we're good to go. I think it's like a great decision. And I think why it's good that Duncan and Tyler are on board with it is because there's a difference between doing this on like your 15th side project or on an actual website that is like responsible for driving all of the traffic of an established business. I think it's awesome. I mean, especially with me, I was like, yeah, why do I not do it? Why am I so stuck to like wanting to keep things in Webflow? Like you said, it's like, that's just how we've been doing things. But I agree with you. One of the things that is like my big challenge with Webflow is nowadays, it's just the time to iterate is just still so long. It feels long. It obviously isn't long compared to what it used to be, but it's like you when you're spinning through sites so much faster, it's kind of, damn, it's like building out this section of Webflow is actually like way more time consuming than I feel like it should be. And it's kind of an interesting shift in terms of like evaluate the trade-offs of different platforms now, I feel like it's not even so much like a money thing, because it's not like these tools are like super duper expensive, but the time to iterate and to move is just the main selling point, in my opinion. It's a very interesting one. I do want to, so I was like trying to figure out how can I actually get more efficient with my Webflow builds. The Webflow MCP, nah, you know?
Yeah,
like,
I've got some quick thoughts on the Webflow MCP, and that is, in theory, that's exactly what I want. Here's the deal. In my opinion, like you said, it's funny. It feels so slow and cumbersome building out new sections in Webflow. Not because it's Webflow's slow. Like, it's the same. It's a better product than it was when I first tried it and was like, oh, this is the fastest thing ever. But now, in comparison, building with agents is that much faster, right? And so,
yeah,
in theory, if I can build agentically in Webflow and then still have the control that I have in Webflow, that's my dream scenario. However, Webflow can try to build their own agents. They're not going to be able to compete with Anthropic. They don't want to, and nor should they, right? And so the MCP means I can use Claude code in Webflow, and I commend them for that, but it just sucks right now. It just sucks. And so all they need to do is the same thing, but better. And I will be like, head over here. I want Webflow to win at the end of the day. I built my career, I built my life, and MemberStack built its company off Webflow. If anyone has a vested interest in Webflow besides like their literal shareholders and employees, it's me. I want Webflow to win, and I hope Webflow does this. So anyways, let's see what you built here.
So, I mean, I'm on the same page. I mean, I still want it to work. So one of the things that when they like launched the MCP and stuff like that, I was actually trying to figure out like how exactly does it work. And they actually document it quite well, because really it's just like a different API. Like you've got the designer API that you can use to basically do all the things that you would otherwise manually do in Webflow. So like if you want to retrieve all the styles that you have, what you can do is you can just run this script and it will basically return it for you. The only tricky thing with the designer API is that you can't run it like a REST API. It needs to be in the Webflow environment. So like if you're on a site, they have an app, which I think is the designer API playground. And what you can do is you can just like take like your code and you can paste it in there and you can kind of run it, and it will just go ahead and it will do basically all the things that you would want it to do. So basically the way that the MCP works is kind of like this. It kind of figures out the first thing I need to do is I need to get this element. Then what I need to do is I need to go and get that element. And so I kind of figured out, okay, so if I can do this, it like retrieves all of my styles. How can I like, for example, manage the styles? And so what you can do is you can, for example, say, all right, I'm going to like retrieve a class name. They call it styles in here. And what it will do is you can like run your API call and it will basically tell you what all your settings are. It will say like, oh, this is the color that you're using. There's all this kind of stuff. And so when you're using the MCP and you say, hey, I want this to be red, what it is actually doing is basically using Webflow on your behalf. And so because they've got all of these like different endpoints, and they literally have all the endpoints, they've got like create a component, it's like create variables, create this, create that. I was kind of thinking like, all right, in theory, if I kind of have like an understanding of how this works, I should be able to create entire sections and entire pages by like assembling different parts of this code. And what I was doing is I was jumping into Claude Code and I was basically assembling all these like different like snippets and stuff like that. And then I would come back into here and I'd paste it in here and there'd be like errors, and then like just basically say, oh, okay, I'll like copy the output back into Claude Code and be like, hey, this is what I got. Can you fix it? But then eventually it was starting to get better and better and better. And then I was like, this is fun, but it's kind of tedious. This whole copy and pasting things back and forth. So I was like, in theory, if I just wanted to do this in a Claude Code and then fire the script in here, what would I have to do? Because I can't make API calls like I would to a REST API. So what I did And again, this is like super messy, but like this is literally, this is like a fun little side thing, is I figured out I need to build my own Webflow extension, which essentially is like the designer API playground. And then what I need to do is I need to kind of make it do what like the Realm extension does, or what the MemberStack extension does, which is it actually connects to like a server somewhere that I can then talk to. So I was like, all right, my goal is real simple. I want to be able to write this, and then I want to write this in Claude Code. Then I want to be able to run a command that then runs it in here. And then I want it to spit out the result that I got. And I want Claude to then look at the result and then iterate it based on it. And I was like, let's see how doable this is. And with a lot of back and forth and a lot of like, I have no idea what I'm doing, I ended up building my own little custom Webflow extension I called it Webflow Dev Bridge. And the logo that I picked for it is literally a logo that I had on my site. I think it's maybe the Vercel logo or something like that.
I think it is. I mean, it's a triangle, so...
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, this is not going to see the light of day, so it doesn't really matter. And I was like, okay. So then I was like, all right, now I need to figure out how I can connect this here, my Claude code, to this. So I basically explained what I was trying to do, and Claude Code basically was like, oh yeah, just do this, this, and this. And I basically created like some Claude commands for me that allows me to, first of all, initiate it. So I've already installed it in this project, but basically you create a new project and then you just go and say Webflow Bridge init, I think it is. And what it will do is it will basically install these folders on your site. And one of the key folder here is the script folder, because what this script will do is this is what actually ends up running inside of the Webflow CMS. Now, because this all runs locally, I actually have to start the connection first. So you just go Webflow Bridge serve, and this might break, I'm not sure. Oh, okay, so it's just going to go through the process. It's going to kind of connect, and then if everything works correctly, if I hit the refresh button, okay, issues. There was like some little config issues with the setup, but I just went
always when demoing, always.
Can you run? Okay, wait. Yeah, serving now. It just took a little longer. But now, basically what's happened is it's connected my Claude code instance to this bridge. And now in here, I've got this script called Hello World. And what I can do now is I can say, can you run?
By the way, I'm assuming you're typing to Claude code right now. I can only see the Webflow window.
Oh, no. So let me share the whole window. Sorry.
All right.
Oh man, the build up and then just the screen share just let it all down. But so then I was just kind of like, all right, if I, in theory, can get this Hello World script to run, then in theory, I should be able to get anything to run, really. So I basically said to Claude Code, can you run this thing here? And I literally just set this project up for demo. So usually I have a Claude MD file that kind of explains how to use the extension. If it doesn't understand it, it sometimes needs to go back and forth, where you just kind of like just run it as a command and all that kind of stuff. But what it does is it basically takes the script, and what happens is, because I'm connected locally, and this is like a development app, so it's like you can just run it locally. What happens is it will just go ahead and run it. All right, there's like an issue with it. This is the thing with live demos. All right, so what it did was it ran my script, it fully executed it, and it basically returned, hey, hello world, and like the timestamp and all that kind of stuff. And then it just basically returns all of it back into Claude Code. So it basically ran a script, got the response from the designer API, and sent it back. And then I was like, okay, shit, this works. Like, I've written a script in here, and I've then executed it directly from Claude Code, and then I got a response from here, which means that now, in theory, knowing all the things that are possible with the API documentation, I should be able to say, hey, can you like build me a section that has all of this stuff in it? And in theory, it should just write the script for me and then execute the script. That was my thinking. So I did that.
And I was like holding on. I'm like, I understand 80% of what you're saying, but there's something missing. Now I get it. Okay, because yeah, the problem with the MCP is the context, right? It's that Webflow does not handle the context of all the class names, all the elements, all the everything very well. And so it literally passes it from Webflow into Claude Code, and the MCP is like, oh dear. Whereas Claude Code can work with absurdly large code bases, right? So it's like, it should be possible. And so what you're trying to do here is essentially offload Webflow's context into Claude Code, who can handle it better.
Exactly. And they're like, and so the whole thing was like, yeah, then like in theory, I can just like load like documentation in here. I'll have like sample scripts and it should be able to do it all for me. But then I was like running into heaps of issues with like all of the index API docs are out of date because Webflow had a designer API v1, and all of the LLMs have basically indexed that, which means that if you're just saying like, build me this section, a lot of the stuff that it uses is like completely out of date. So what I did was I actually found this like real cool tool called Context 7. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah. It's like got all these API docs up to date in them.
Yeah, and I basically go, can you create me a hero section for my personal website? I am Connor and I am a baker. And then I said, use Context 7 to find the Webflow design API docs and also find the client first API docs to create the section and make it mobile responsive. And what it does then is it basically goes ahead and it uses Context 7 to get all the API documentation from all these tools. And then it uses the API documentation to essentially create a new custom script for me that I can then run and essentially assemble a page or a section or whatever it is that I'm trying to do. And so the idea behind this, and this is obviously still very like new, like I'm mostly doing it for like things I can't be bothered doing over and over again, like with building like UI components, cards, certain sections, all that type of stuff. But this here is kind of like my take on the Webflow MCP. But instead of it going through every single step individually, what it does is it writes the entire script for me up front like this.
Yeah.
And then it runs it. So let's just see how like the first version of it goes, because typically I run into like little issues. But the idea behind it is that more scripts you have, the more efficient it becomes. But it will go ahead and it will say, created the hero section. I usually also in the Claude MD file specify, hey, I'm using like the Reloom starter project. So in theory, I shouldn't be, so it knows what classes already exist, so I won't make up new ones. But you'll kind of see in here how it like just creates the mobile first iteration. Now, in this case, what has happened is it's tried to run it and there's been, it hasn't tried to run it yet. It's basically going in here, it's making whatever iteration it has. But then once it's done, you run it and then if all goes well, it works. But again, this is a new project. It works like really well on more established projects that I set up, but just for this demo, I just kind of did it in here. But then the idea is that once you have like all these scripts, you can basically iterate on it a lot faster. You can tie your existing like design preferences or style guides into it, and it will automatically adopt the class names that you have. And it follows the process essentially that I go through when I am creating these sites in Webflow. So it basically follows like the client first structuring, class naming conventions, all that kind of stuff. And and so now it's kind of done and it's like, hey, do you want to run it? And then it just goes ahead, takes the script and runs in the background. And then you'll see there may be some errors that comes up, but now it has the ability to self-correct itself because it has access to all the API docs.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, it's a bit of a shame that it doesn't. I should have probably prepared something for it, like a bit more of a polished demo of it all. But I don't know. That was kind of like I was working on it because I was like, hey, if I can find a way to make this more efficient in Webflow, then that would be sick. But then as I was doing it, I was also like, seriously, what am I doing? Like, if I am putting this much time and energy into building a Chrome extension to build something in Webflow, why do I just not just build the actual thing in an actual vibe coded setup? Because it's like I'm just inventing solutions to the easier solutions that I could pick. And honestly, when I kind of wrap it all up, what I've learned about it is it's so easy to just be like, oh, let's just build a solution to this, when in reality it's actually just kind of easier to kind of go down a simpler path.
Yeah.
Just build it in React, or just build it in Astro if that's the problem that you're trying to solve. But yeah, at some point I'll have a polished demo of this, because it is actually quite neat to look at once it just creates an entire page for you. If you've ever imported something from Reloom, a page of theirs, I think they use pretty much the same method. It's a script that runs with all of the designs that you've built. That's why it goes so fast. It's one big script with everything that you've built inside a Reloom that is assembled, that then runs in the designer API extension that they built. So
I don't know how else they would be doing that. What you just built, I mean, yeah, I would love to see you should make a polished demo of that and put that one on YouTube. That being said, I was doing the same thing, not that, but the same category of things last year, which I was trying to force everything into Webflow when it didn't make sense for it to be in Webflow. And that's the thing. So what you're doing is you're trying to make it so that you can use the contextual awareness and the building speed of Claude Code inside of Webflow. That's what Webflow should be doing. That's what Webflow should be enabling. And that's what I want them to do. Here's the thing. The reason we left Webflow, as you heard from my story, it's not because Webflow didn't do the job we wanted it to do. It's not because it wasn't as feature rich as we needed it to be. It's because the speed of building and the quality with that speed of building with Claude Code is up here, compared to Webflow being here. Not because Webflow is bad, but just because this was the benchmark. Now this is the benchmark.
Yeah.
If we were able to use Claude Code inside of Webflow and build and make updates and make changes with Claude Code inside of Webflow, we never would have left Webflow, because that's what that was the goal for the migration. It was to be able to build faster, and that's what I think Webflow should be doing. So now you're looking at Webflow and they made the MCP. Wonderful start, but I think it might be doomed from the beginning because of the amount of context Webflow passes back and forth. Member Stack MCP is, in comparison, easy because there's not that many different things going on. You don't have giant, sections with different classes, with each class having different settings and different breakpoints. And so Webflow is trying to manage that with the MCP. But it's hard, and is it even possible is the question. So what I think Webflow needs to be doing is experimenting with exactly what you have just experimented with, and that is handing over the context management in the site knowledge and everything like that to Claude Code. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if I could build sites in Claude Code and then they were right there in Webflow for me so that I can make little tiny tweaks, turn things into components. I had a situation yesterday. I was actually adding a little banner to the member stack site that's vibe coding, click here. Yeah. I was sitting there and it was putting it behind and it was putting it in front, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, no, it needs to be above the nav bar in the static layout. I eventually settled for below. I'm like, it needs to be static and the nav bar is sticky. And I'm going back and forth with Claude about this for a little while, and it's annoying. And that particularly would have been faster to do in Webflow. And so that's my dream. The thing is, I don't care about that because, again, I saved literally months by building the site in Claude Code. So a few little hiccups here and there, they're going to happen. It's fine. But Webflow, in my opinion, look, not everyone is me. Not everyone has the same priorities as me. I am not ever the kind of person who's going to sit there and be like, Webflow's doomed. Webflow's cooked, this and that. No, I don't think that at all. People are still using Joomla and Drupal, dude. Webflow is going nowhere. The Webflow industry is going to remain. But what I want is that speed of Claude Code. And I
Yeah.
love the management of Webflow. And Webflow, like, if they want to keep people like me, that is how you do it.